Fireworks. Let's keep it blue fireworks. But look, let's get into the preview today. It is Tottenham against Crystal Palace at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. 3 o'clock kickoff tomorrow, which is a really interesting game, to be honest. If you look at like the kind of league standings now, Champions League looks completely out of our reach. Europa League looks like it's very unlikely to get. So it looks as though we are playing to miss out on the Conference League. That's what we've got to look forward to for the rest of the season. You're looking at Aston Villa and Brighton, who are the teams that we're battling against. They both have very hard fixtures. We've probably got the easiest fixtures out of all three. So at the moment, it's looking quite likely that we're going to be getting the Conference League.
Well, Brighton look like they're going to be getting Europa League. So so at the moment they're a point ahead of us with 2 games in hand, albeit those 2 games in hand against Man City, and against Newcastle. So they're not the easiest games in hand you're ever likely to get. At the moment, yeah, I think to be honest, it's probably you're looking at Aston Villa for that Conference League place. If we beat Brighton to anything, I think we'll finish top 6. If we finish ahead of Brighton,
Brighton nothing.
So in that case, I think it's between us and Villa for that last Conference League spot, to be honest, and that's not something we want to fight for. It's a battle we probably want to lose, albeit we are still only a point behind Brighton, so I don't think you can completely rule it out because they're 2 games in hand. There's no guarantee they win either of those games. So I do think if it's a straight shootout right now between us and Brighton for that last spot, I think there's still a chance we can do it, albeit Brighton are playing extremely well right now, and even saw yesterday how they completely dominated that Man United team, and Man United were lucky that it only took until the 98th minute or whatever it was for Brighton to score. Could have easily happened before that. So Brighton are going to be heavy favourites right now for that last spot, but I don't think it's completely over just yet for that last top 6 spot. And I do want that Europa League spot, to be honest, because as much as it probably would benefit us to have a year out of Europe and completely concentrate on a free week to rebuild, I still like the idea of having that chance of being in Europa League and seeing what we can do in that competition. I do think it's a competition which has a lot of value and it will be very good to win. Conference League, on the other hand, for me, I just think it's a nonsense. I hate that competition. I've never watched a Conference League game apart from when Tottenham were in it. I'm not fussed about that competition whatsoever, and it doesn't give us anything. So I'm happy to miss out. I'd rather finish 8th than 7th for sure, but by the looks of things, 7th is probably where we're going to finish, which is very frustrating.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and it is very frustrating because I kind of feel similar to you about the situation, but I think I would prefer... look, I side slightly with the Europa League, but I don't know. My heart is telling me that we should go to Europa League. It's a competition that we can win. It's another route back into the Champions League. But my head's telling me just like a season outside of Europe could do us the world of good, especially with the massive rebuild that we do need next season. So I kind of am favouring slightly with the coming out of Europe completely. But if we are in the Europa League, I'd want us to give it a good fist of it and really go far and see what we can do. But yeah, I agree. Conference League, there's just no point. What is the point? Like, if you win it, you go back into Europa League.
So. Yeah, it's like and you get no money for it. You get I think if you win the whole thing, you get like 10 million or something. It's like nothing. And
we should just let people who want to be in it get there. Aston Villa, if they were to get in the Conference League next year, that'd be a massive achievement for them. So just let them get it. You know what I mean?
But I don't think Mason's been told that. 'Cause look, I'm sure we want that last Europa League spot. So I do think we're going to try and win every game as much as possible.
It's deja vu, isn't it? Last time Mason was in charge.
Yeah. Same position.
It was the same position. We got Conference League on the last day of the season. Let's just hope it's not the same this year.
Beat Arsenal to it that time.
Yeah. But even beating Arsenal to it last year, it still wasn't a great thing to do, even if you were beating Arsenal. But look, in terms of Spurs against Crystal Palace, in terms of the head-to-head between the clubs, it is a club which we have had good recent history against. We score a lot of goals against them. The one loss in the last 5 games coming in Nuno's first defeat as Tottenham manager, which was a terrible defeat, 3-0 at Selhurst Park. But, you cast your mind back earlier on this season, just after the turn of the year, when we absolutely tore them to shreds, didn't we, at Selhurst Park, with one of our best performances of the season. How do you look at Palace coming into it this time? Because they got Roy Hodgson back in charge. something seems to have changed in their team because they seem to be scoring a lot of goals, seem to be getting good results. They did have their first loss a couple of weeks ago under Roy Hodgson, but they got back to winning ways against West Ham last week in a 4-3 victory, which shouldn't have really been 4-3. I felt like they were very much worth that victory. And I thought 4-3 put gloss over it for West Ham. But how do you assess Crystal Palace coming into this?
Yeah, I feel like the whole there's a narrative, obviously, that Hodgson has come in and saved Palace, and they were on a massive downward trajectory, and he's come in, they've won 3 games in a row, and all of a sudden they're playing great football. I don't really agree with that assertion in my book. I think that what's changed is their fixtures got easier, in my opinion. I think that's the main thing that's changed. Yes, they were really struggling beforehand, don't get me wrong, and they were really struggling to create chances, but the fact of the matter is, before Hodgson came in, they had a really, really difficult set of fixtures. I think they played all the top teams away from home, a lot of them away from home as well. They'd had gone 12 games, and all of them, I think, Palace weren't favourites. And yes, you could say, well, even in those games, you should expect at least a few points. And and they didn't lose 12 in a row. They did pick up a few points here and there, but didn't get any wins. But I just feel like, look, the games Hodgson has won, Leicester at home, Leeds away, Southampton away. Like, look, the fact of the matter is, Vieira, when he left Palace in the position he was, they were 12th, right? And that they were 12th, having not won 12 games in a row. Now, why were they 12th and not bottom? Because they had a really good start to the season. They were playing really well, and they were scoring goals, and they were playing good football. But they hit that really tough run. The results dropped, but they still had enough of a buffer to keep them 12th. Now, where are they still in the league? They're still. So Hodgson has taken them from 12th to 11th. It's not like I know it's a good narrative because he's a 75-year-old manager, and it's a great story that he's come back to Premier League management and won some games. But I don't agree with the narrative, in my opinion, that he's completely changed up Palace, and it's like completely like a new thing. Because I think Vieira was doing a good job, and I actually think he was unfairly sacked, in my opinion. Yeah. I think he would have won these games.
Look, I agree. I think he would have won these games as well. But you can't get away from the fact that they're scoring more goals than they've probably ever scored in the Premier League era. Their XG as well is completely through the roof. I believe in 2 of the games that Roy Hodgson has taken over this year has been their highest XG in Premier League history, or something crazy like that. So I think that Roy Hodgson is doing a very good job. You can't say he's not. Whether Patrick Vieira should have been sacked or not, I agree with you. I don't think he should have, and I think he would have won these games anyway, but I don't think he would have won them maybe as emphatically as Roy Hodgson and Palace are doing it right now.
Yeah, I mean, the only one they really won emphatically, they beat Leeds 5-1, and Leeds is conceding loads of goals right now. The other games, 2-1 against Leicester, 2-0 against Southampton, 4-3 against West Ham. So I think they're all...
Yeah, that 4-3 against West Ham, though, was a bit of a sucker punch to them in their defence, because they should have won that game way more convincingly with the way the games went.
All right, I'm sure Vieira could have said the same about a number of games that they won this season. You know what I mean? That they didn't maybe score the chance they did. I think, look, you got to give credit to Hodgson because he has done well to seal survival very early on. I never thought they were going to get relegated. I know they went on a 12-game a run without a win, and I understand that, and there was going to be a lot of anxiety going to the final stretch. So he's done well to just get them over the line, but I do feel for Vieira because I do think he would have won those games. I feel like they've given all the tough games to him, and they kind of given Hodgson all the easy games to kind of get them over the line and get all the praise basically for keeping them up, when at the end of the day he's taken them from 12th to 11th. That's what he's done. So I do think it's a bit over the top, the praise, but I do get that it's a nice story, and they are playing well at the moment. Don't get me wrong. Eze, Olise, and Zaha. I mean, Zaha's only just come back from injury, but the one again for me, the most impressive thing is Zaha. I think got an injury in his first game, and it hasn't affected them. Olise and Eze have really stepped up under Hodgson and taken responsibility, and they've been scoring. Have been scoring a lot of goals, and that's been very impressive. And they've been linking up really, really well, and you got to give them credit for that. But I just think a lot of the praise over the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, but it is a good job he's doing. He's scoring a lot of goals. In terms of what you're saying about 12th to 11th, I mean, he's won, 4 out of 5 games, so...
They've won 4 out of 6.
4 out of 6. So, I mean, he's doing the best he can, Roy Hodgson. And if Patrick Vieira was still in the job, I mean, it probably wouldn't be too much difference. Maybe a couple of less goals, but they would be in the same position, let's be honest.
They would have been safe 100% with these fixtures.
No, they'll be in the same position. They'll probably still be 11th in the league. But look, if you're looking at the form coming into this, we're looking at Palace, the amount of goals they're scoring. They've scored 11 in the last 5. We've scored 10. But the big difference is the amount of goals we've conceded in our last 5. They've conceded 6. We've conceded 16. How have we conceded 10 more goals than Crystal Palace in our last 5 games? That just shows, like, we've been banging on about this defence for the last couple of years now. And that is just proof in the pudding, isn't it?
100%. I think it's now 20 goals in our last 7 games as well, or 20 more. I think 21 goals in our last 7 games. It's ridiculous, our defensive record. I do think, obviously, it's a consequence of having 3 managers in a very short space of time. So a lot of disorganisation. Our defence was bad under Conte, but our problem wasn't that we conceded as many goals as we're conceding now. That wasn't the issue. As much as we would make mistakes and we wouldn't be very good defensively, we were never this bad defensively when we had Conte. At least we had a bit of organisation about us. But now, since Conte's gone, and then Stellini's come in, he's had a bit, maybe change it, a different way of playing slightly. We went 4 at the back for 1 game, conceded 6 goals. Now Mason's come in, go for a slightly more offensive style of play. That changes the back 4 dynamic even more. So I think when it comes to defence, the main thing with defence is it needs time and it needs to be worked on. And you're never going to get a defence right in 1 or 2 games. It's very, very difficult to do that. So I think it goes to a consequence of lack of quality and lack of structure leading to a shit show, essentially. If you have one or the other, you can it won't be as bad as it is now, but we're kind of mixing the two. So you have a good defence with a bad structure, you'll probably not be great, but you won't be a shit show. But if you have a bad structure with good players as well, you can maybe as well get by. But with a bad defenders and a bad structure, then all of a sudden, here we are.
16 goals in 5 games.
And here we are. Exactly.
If you look at the predicted lineup for Crystal Palace, this is the lineup that they played in the last game, the 4-3 win against West Ham. It's interesting. Recently, Sam Johnston has been preferred in goal to Guaita. What's happened to Guaita? I mean, Sam Johnston, how's he been the last couple of games?
I don't think he's been great or terrible. I think
with Spurs, wasn't he?
He was going to be our sub keeper. He was on a free transfer. Never really happened. Hasn't really got a look in for Crystal Palace this season. I think White has been a decent servant for Crystal Palace. He is getting on a bit, although he's like in his early 30s, he's like 33 or something, which isn't too old for a goalkeeper. But I think recently maybe they've just given Sam Johnson a go. I don't know. Maybe he's been playing well in training. We know that he has Premier League experience, and he was a decent Premier League keeper at West Brom. So it looks like they've preferred him for the time being. Fair enough. I don't really know if maybe Guaita was making mistakes or something. I don't know. But it didn't seem to be, because they were winning games fairly comfortably, and then Johnson just suddenly came in. So I'm not really sure what the reason is. Need a Palace fan to tell us, I think.
Yeah, and in terms of their defence, Guehi and what's his name? Anderson at the back, right? 2 top players, in my opinion. 2 players that both get into our defence, in my opinion. Guehi, the one being linked with us at the moment, linked with us and Arsenal and top clubs in the Premier League. First of all, I think we've spoken about him a lot, so I think both of us can agree that he would be a good asset to us if we were to sign him. But how do you see us really hurting this Crystal Palace team this weekend?
Well, as much as Palace have been good offensively under Hodgson, it's actually at the back where they haven't been amazing, which is funny, because you associate Hodgson with more of a defensive style of play, a bit more of a pragmatic manager, safety first. But actually, they have been more offensive, thrown caution to the wind. They haven't been like this most defensive team. So I do think it's going to be interesting, because in all their games, Palace, since Hodgson's taken over, they've by and large, apart from maybe the Leeds game, where they were much more on the counter-attack, in all their other games, they've dominated possession, and they've been the team in control. Now, they come to the Tottenham Stadium against a team against us who, under Mason, we haven't been having lots of possession, but clearly in the second halves, we've definitely looked to put pressure on the opposition and looked to control the game.
So to be fair, we haven't had much of an option, though, have we?
True, because of the situation. But are we going to look to do that from the start in this game? I think it's going to be interesting to see how the game plays out, because are Palace going to try and dominate possession like have been ever since Hodgson's taken over? Are Tottenham going to dominate possession like we have been in the second halves under Mason? Obviously, this is the first time under Mason now we've played maybe a team in the bottom half as opposed to, we played United and Liverpool, two really tough games. Palace, obviously is going to be a tough game, but this is a game, obviously, we probably see ourselves more on the front foot, more trying to dominate, attacking. So I do think there are ways to hurt this Palace team. I think their wing backs in Mitchell and Joel Ward definitely can be got at 100% out wide, and especially how wide we like to play. If we can get Porro and Perisic really far forward, it does two things. Either they get the space because Joel Ward and Mitchell aren't that great and aren't going to be going so far out wide because of our inside forwards, or it forces Eze and Olise or whoever they play, or Zaha. It forces them all the way back, and it makes it difficult for them to get forward and really penetrate and find the space that they have been finding in the past few games. So I think our wing backs are going to be massive threats in this game, because I don't know. I think, look, Olise and Zaha are hard-working forwards, no doubt about it. But they want to be getting forward. They want to be getting in the final third, and they don't want to be tracking back the whole game. So I think it's important that our wing-backs really force their hand in that aspect, in my opinion.
In terms of our front line, obviously Kane and Son definitely going to play. But the other position on the right-hand side, a toss-up probably between Richarlison and Kulusevski. Kulusevski, I thought, performed well off the bench against Man United, but then followed up with a poor performance from when he started. Richarlison, in our tier list, he was right at the top of the best performing players of the month. I thought a bit lucky to be
more
there.
about our players
I think a bit lucky to be there, but who would you prefer to see start tomorrow, Richarlison or Kulu?
I think you got to give it to Richarlison, just because I thought he had a good impact when he came on against Liverpool, and you got to reward that. He came on and scored, and it wasn't just the goal. He was causing havoc. He should have had a penalty. He was just causing problems for them. And I think you got to reward that, especially with Kulusevski not having the best game. I'm not saying that. I don't think Kulusevski was as bad as people are saying at Anfield, albeit he didn't have a very good game at all. But I do think you got to reward a good cameo from Richarlison. I do think as well against Man United, he played for an hour. It wasn't great, but he was all right. Mason seemed to be happy with him. He's also coming back from an injury as well. So I think if we do that, though, it has to be Richarlison on the left, Son on the right, and that's what we've been doing recently when he's been on. I think it's actually looked all right, to be fair. I think Son's been fairly comfortable.
Sonny on the right.
I don't mind him there because he can cut on his left. We know he's so two-footed. For some reason, like that goal, for example, that he scored against Man United, where he arrives at the back post, and also that run he makes against Liverpool. He just seems to be less likely to do that from the right-hand side. I don't know why. Even though he's very two-footed, he seems still more comfortable on the left-hand side. But we know that he's more comfortable on the right than Richarlison is. So from that aspect, I would like to see Richarlison on the left and Son on the right, and I think it adds a bit more bite to the team as well. And Richarlison as well, after getting his first goal, I want to see maybe he can build off that, get 2-2, maybe build some confidence and really build a platform going into next season where maybe he can hit the ground running a bit. So I think that's why I would like to see Richarlison for sure from the start.
Yeah, and like you said, I think he deserves it, to be honest. And if Richarlison does start, it really gives us that opportunity later on in the game. If things aren't going our way, Richarlison likes to tire out opposition defenders as well, and Kulu can come on and really reap the benefits of that. And
also, one thing that's very underrated in my opinion is his box presence and his ability in the air. And I think that when you think about it, when we have Kulusevski and Son, and we're playing the way that we do, where we're just spamming crosses in from wing backs, you're pretty much just aiming for Kane, essentially, or the back post wing back, who's sometimes free. Whereas if you put Richarlison in there, all of a sudden you do have another option you can aim at. You do have someone who's going to be a bit of a presence there, who can attack things in the box. And I do feel like that is definitely missing. When, as much as under Conte in the last season, Kane, Son and Kulusevski were dynamite together, the way we've been playing this season I don't think has lended to them being at their most effective. And I think that if we're going to be getting as many crosses as we are this season, I think we're crossing a lot more this season than we were last season, and if we're going to be crossing that this much, I think it makes a lot more sense having someone like Richarlison there.
If you look at the ones to watch for Crystal Palace, we've put in there Zaha and Eze, but could have well put Olise in there as well. That's going to be their front three this week. Eze might dropped a bit bit further back into midfield, and Jordan Ayew, Zaha and Elise in attack. But on these two players specifically, I mean, Eze has super impressed me this season. I feel like he's taken it up a notch, albeit, I mean, he has suffered with injuries last couple of years, which has held him back. But what's Eze bringing to this team that maybe he hasn't the previous couple of years?
He's adding more goal contributions, clearly. Before, he was much more of a winger. When he first came, and he was much more of a player who liked to play wide, especially come from the Championship. He was much more of a winger, and now over the last year or so, he's developed into more of a number 10 or a central midfielder. And I think he's thriving in that aspect, because out wide, obviously Eze is really good at beating players, but he didn't have that ruthlessness on the out wide to get crosses in or just cut inside and shoot. Whereas he's really utilising his creative ability in the centre, and he still has that side to him where he can get a shot off in the central area as well, rather than cutting in from the wide area. And because he's so good in those tight spaces, it actually doesn't affect him too much when it's congested, because he can actually deal with those congested areas really, really well when he's got players around him, and it allows him to link up with the wide man or link up with the striker. So he's really thriving off being in the central area, and it's really great to see. And I think it's not too long before he gets an England cap, in my opinion. I think he really, like, why should Mason Mount be ahead of him right now? He shouldn't. I think he should be there as a number 10. I think
the reason Mason Mount's ahead of him is because Gareth Southgate has his favourites. That's the only reason, literally. But in turn, look, Eze, I mean, when he was at QPR, when we were linked with him back then, I really wanted him then. And you can see he's come on leaps and bounds since then as well. I mean, he really is a top player. Or he will be a top player as well.
I would even I would go as far as to say, if we're looking to solve our number 10 issues, I wouldn't look as far as, I wouldn't go further than Eze, but he's going to cost a lot. He's going to be English premium. He's young. Another guy buying off a Premier League team. Like, could you reckon you could get him for the same price as you get Maddison? I don't know. Only because Maddison is going to be coming from a relegation team. Palace would want to build on that, but
Maddison's got only a year left on his contract, right?
Yeah. So I reckon if we go for something like Eze, you're probably looking at 70 million.
70 million.
That's reality, I think. To be honest.
How much did they sign him for?
I think they signed him for cheap, like 15 million or something.
I reckon if you put a bid in of 50 million, they consider that.
I don't think they do. I think they. I think you underestimate how much money Premier League teams have now. Like, I think they've got no reason to sell for 50. Look, he might be worth 50, but they've got no reason to sell 50. They're going to say if you want him, you have to pay a premium. I think
it depends if like a big club comes in and then he starts kicking up a fuss. Because if he starts kicking up a fuss, then the price will go down, and they'll be pressured to sell. But look, in terms of Wilfried Zaha,
they've done that with Zaha, haven't they? They've kept him every time.
Yeah, they have kept him. But did Zaha kick up a fuss? Really?
He did. He put in a transfer request a couple of times, and they. I remember 50 million bid from Everton on deadline day. He put in a transfer request, and they said no. So they have previous for standing strong. I do think it'll cost a big price for Eze if they wanted him. But I would love him at Tottenham, to be honest, especially now he's developed that role in midfield. Yeah, especially.
And I love the dynamic that they have going forward with Zaha, with Elise, with Eze. I mean, Jordan Ayew could definitely be upgraded on, but those three players, I mean, they are top talents. I mean, Zaha's getting on a bit, 30 years old, on a free in the summer.
Yeah, interesting.
Would you take him?
I've been a massive fan of Wilfried Zaha, and I thought he was. I still think he's absolutely brilliant. I think he's got so much, in my opinion. I know he's 30, but I still think he's got levels to go in a weird way, because he's been carrying for many years this Palace team and doing a lot of this by himself. And you can even see now in the last two or 3 years, since Olise and Eze have come in and helped him carry that load of goal scoring, he's actually upped his goal contributions, and he's actually been more effective. But the reality is, unfortunately, he's 31. Injuries he's now starting to get a few injuries. He's he's also on I think right now on 200 grand a week at Crystal Palace right now.
200 grand a week?
Yeah, he's on. They gave him a big contract, or at least 150. I think he's on a big contract at Crystal Palace.
On pay parity with Harry Kane.
Well, you say that Lingard's on more than Harry Kane. You know, it's crazy. But anyway, Zaha's on a big contract now with Palace. They want to keep him on. They're going to offer him big money. So you're looking at probably something like 200 grand a week to get. On a free, you're probably looking at more, to be honest, because he's on a free. So you're looking at over 200 grand a week to bring him in. He probably wants at least a 3 or 4 year deal. I just think the money doesn't make sense for a player of his age. As much as I think, if you're looking just on quality-wise, in my opinion, if you take age and price and all that out of it, if I'm looking at him just on quality and position-wise versatility, I would love him at Tottenham. I think he's absolute star quality. I think he's worthy of a Champions League team. I think he's one of the most underrated players. Even now, people still think he's a show pony. I think he's so much more than that, in my opinion. But I think when you take everything else into account, with how football's moved on, I just think we need younger players. I think we need younger forwards who can build to the future, because you don't want to be in a situation where you have, let's say we sign Zaha. I don't want to be in a situation 3 years. Let's say we sign Zaha and Kane signs a contract. We don't want to be in a situation 3 years' time where you have Kane who's 33, Son who's 34, and Zaha who's 34, all running out of contract. Then all of a sudden we have to spend 300 million to replace that whole backline. We need to start thinking about that now, not put that off for a few years' time. We need to be looking at the next generation of Tottenham forwards. 100%. So I don't think Zaha is that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I've always had reservations about Zaha, to be honest, but I can definitely see he is a top player. And I would like to see him at Spurs, but I completely agree with you. Like, we need to be going for players about 10 years younger than Wilfried Zaha right now, with where we're at. I mean, the whole thing is we need to decrease the age of the squad. We need to find the next Heung-min Son. We need to find someone to eventually replace him. And Wilfried Zaha is not going to be that guy because they're the same age. So.
I think we had a chance to do it probably a few years ago if we really stumped up the cash. Because I think when he was like 27 or 28, there was an opportunity, I think, to get him when he was really trying to itch for a move. Didn't happen, and I think now that time's gone.
But how do we go about keeping these guys out on the weekend? Because they're so quick, tricky, know where the net is. They're scoring a lot of goals at the moment. And with our defence the way it is, 16 goals in the last 5 games. How do we keep these guys out?
I don't think we do, to be honest. I think we're definitely scoring. I think we have to just try and outscore them, to be honest. That's going to be how we win this game. I don't think trying to keep a clean sheet and keeping solid is going to be the way forward. We need to basically bank on the fact that we have better attackers than them and kind of make it an open game. And if we do that, then I think we can outscore them, because I do think our attackers are more clinical than Palace attackers. When you think about Olise and Eze and Zaha, the problem with them is if we dominate possession and then they're springing on us on counter-attacks, they're 3 of the best one-on-one dribblers in the league. I think if you actually look at take-ons, I think I looked at this the other day, if you look at Premier League take-ons per 90 minutes, I think all 3 of them are in the top 5. Yeah, how many take-ons they do.
Surprise me.
So even when they're not linking with each other, they can just do things by themselves and take players on and create chances and create openings. And that's the problem when we're dominating possession. So in a way, we can't, if we really want to concentrate on defending against Palace, you need to be compact and you need to be a bit deeper to make sure that they're not getting that space, so that they're not getting too many one-on-one situations. You kind of need to double up on all of them in a way, which is very hard to do because they're all very good at beating just a single player. But I just don't think that's what Mason wants to do. I don't think Mason wants to he wants to go away from playing in that kind of compact, deep line we were playing under Conte. So I do think we're going to play a bit higher up, be a bit more aggressive. And I just think the game will be a bit more open in that aspect. We just have to make sure that we're not starting games like we did against Man United and Liverpool. I'm hoping that we don't. And then if we can maybe have a good start as opposed to a start that we did in the last few games, I do think there's definitely goals in this for us with our quality. So I do think our quality's there, but Palace with their front line, I don't think it's even. I'm not saying it's not worth it, but we're like, it's going to be near impossible for how our defence is playing to keep a clean sheet in this game, in my opinion. Even if
in any game,
it's just we're just all over the place. I've got no trust, so I think we shouldn't even bother. We just go for them and try and create as many chances as possible.
Would you think about with our back 3 this weekend? Would you think about playing Romero, Longley, Davis?
I would always think about that. Anything to get Dyer out of the team, to be honest. Look, we have done it this season, haven't we?
And it hasn't looked bad.
It hasn't looked bad, but also, like, it didn't have massive improvements, but it wasn't terrible. I remember, I think we played Villa.
We played Bournemouth, didn't we?
We played Villa and Bournemouth. We lost to Villa 2-0 and then beat Bournemouth.
Dyer play right, or he came on as a right back or something against Bournemouth, didn't he?
He did. His second half.
Yeah.
And it helped us, to be honest. So Yeah, it wasn't too bad in that aspect. But I think Sanchez started against Bournemouth, to be honest. And then Dyer came on. So, for sure. Romero, Longley, Davis, I'd give it a go. I think they're all much more mobile than Dyer, albeit I don't think Longley is particularly quick. The only thing Dyer gives you, I guess, is his ability on the ball to play long passes, which I don't think the other players have shown. But at the moment, last 2 games, his passing's been atrocious anyway, so that's kind of out the window.
Give Longley a go. That's supposed to be his speciality, his passing and his ball playing ability.
No, but it's not long range passing; it's more short range passing. He's very good at. Supposed to be anyway, more progressive. Like Dyer is very good at those switches of play. To be fair, he is pretty good when he's not being pressed and not under pressure. He can actually ping them really well. But last few games, he's been pressed really aggressively, and he's been all over the place. So I would drop him.
See it happening again this game.
I would drop him. But I don't think he will. I think Mason likes him and he's going to play him. I don't think that's going to happen. So I do think that's going to happen, but I would like to see it.
All right. What's your score prediction?
I've been flirting between 2-2 and 3-2 Tottenham.
I said 3-2.
In the preview, I did a preview yesterday on Barry's channel, and I said it was going to be 2-2. I said I'm not sure we're going to be good enough to win the game, but I also think with the way we've been playing recently, I do see us much better at home than we are away. So I'm going to go 3. What was our last home game? Was it Bournemouth or Brighton?
Man United.
Oh, Man United even. So we've been scoring goals at home, haven't we? And we have been much better at home.
I could even see like a 4-3 or something like that tomorrow. You know what? I'm gonna. And when you're looking at our games, I mean, this is one of the ones where you got to say we have to get the 3 points. But do we have to get the 3 points? Because we don't want Conference League.
We have to get it if we want Europa League. If we don't want Conference League, then a loss is a good result. But Villa go away to Wolves on the weekend, so they'll be and obviously Brighton play Everton at home. You probably expect them to win that game. So I think if we obviously don't win this game, I think that will probably be the nail in the coffin for Europa League, probably, if we don't win on Saturday. All
right, so there you have it. That is our match preview. Sim is going for 3-2 to Spurs. I'm going for 4-3 to Spurs. And let us know in the comment section below what your score predictions are and how you feel the game is going to go. But next up...